She had built everything herself. The career, the reputation, the life that other people pointed to and said, that's what success looks like. She'd negotiated contracts worth millions. She'd raised kids largely on her own while building a business. She'd sat across the table from difficult men her entire career and never once flinched. People described her with words like formidable, like sharp, like someone you don't want to be on the wrong side of.
And yet, at 11:47 on a Tuesday night, she's sitting on the bathroom floor of her own house, replaying a conversation from 3 hours ago, trying to figure out where she went wrong. She's apologizing, not for the first time this week, for the fourth. She can't quite remember how the argument started. She just knows it ended with her questioning something she was completely certain about 2 hours ago. She's walking on eggshells inside a home she pays for. She's second-guessing her own memory. She hasn't talked to her closest friend in 4 months. Not because anything happened, but because somehow there was never a good time. And then it became easier not to explain. She's exhausted in a way that sleep doesn't fix. She wasn't naive. She wasn't desperate. She wasn't looking for someone to save her. She's the one who saves herself. So how did she end up here? That's what we're going to figure out. Together. And I promise you, the answer is going to surprise you.
Let's start by destroying a story you've probably been told. The story goes like this. Narcissists prey on insecure women, women with low self-esteem, women who don't know their worth, women who are somehow less. It's a comfortable story. It puts the answer in the right box. It makes the problem feel solvable. Just build your confidence and you'll be safe. Except the data doesn't support it. Therapists who specialize in narcissistic abuse aren't sitting across from timid, broken women who never believed in themselves. They're sitting across from executives, surgeons, attorneys, founders, women who run teams of 50 people during the day and then go home and feel like they're losing their minds. So why do we keep telling the wrong story? Because the right story is more uncomfortable. The right story says it's not your weakness that made you vulnerable. It was your strength. And to understand what that means, we need to go back to the beginning. Here's something almost nobody talks about when they discuss narcissistic relationships. In the beginning, it doesn't feel dangerous. It feels like, finally. He's attentive in a way that feels different from other men. Not performatively attentive, specifically attentive. He remembers the name of your difficult colleague. He asks follow-up questions. He looks at you like you're the most interesting person in any room. He sees you. Not the role, not the competence. You. And he has vision, energy. He talks about the future in a way that feels electric. The places you'll go, the things you'll build together. He doesn't just love who you are, he loves who you're becoming. Psychologists call this phase love bombing, but that term almost undersells it because it sounds like something you'd recognize as excessive. It doesn't feel excessive. It feels like calibration, like someone finally got the settings right. And here's the part that matters. For high-achieving women, this phase is particularly potent because these are women who are often very competent and very alone in that competence. Women who are respected, but not always truly seen. Who are capable, but rarely vulnerable with anyone. He creates a space where vulnerability feels safe. That space is the trap. What she doesn't realize yet is that everything she's revealing, her fears, her insecurities, her past wounds, her deepest desires, is being cataloged. Not consciously, maybe, but cataloged nonetheless. The intimacy is real. The information is being stored. And later, it will be used. Ask yourself, what makes someone emotionally intelligent? The ability to understand how other people feel, to put yourself in someone else's position, to hold complexity, to see that someone can be difficult and wounded, frustrating and trying, flawed and worth believing in. These are extraordinary qualities in friendships, in leadership, in parenting. In a relationship with a narcissist, they become a liability. Here's why. When someone with high emotional intelligence encounters confusing or hurtful behavior, their first instinct is not anger, it's interpretation. They ask, what's going on for them right now? What are they afraid of? What wound is this triggering? That's compassion, and compassion is genuinely valuable. But narcissistic behavior doesn't respond to compassion the way a healthy relationship does. A healthy partner, when met with understanding, softens. They reflect. The relationship grows. A narcissist, when met with understanding, learns that the behavior is survivable, that you'll absorb it, that you'll come back. So she stays up at night trying to decode him. She reads books on attachment theory. She has long conversations with herself about his childhood, his fears, his defenses. She is doing the emotional labor of two people for a relationship that is fundamentally one-sided. And here's what makes it so insidious. Her efforts occasionally work. Sometimes the kindness lands. Sometimes there's a flash of the man she fell for. And every time that happens, her brain registers. See? It's possible. Don't give up. Have you ever stayed somewhere long past when you should have left because you believed in what it could be? Not what it was, what it could be? That's not weakness. That's the mind of someone who has successfully built things, who knows that difficult things are worth working on. The problem is, a relationship is not a business, and some things don't get better with more effort. This part is the one that takes the longest to see, because it doesn't happen all at once. It happens in increments so small, you don't notice them as they're occurring. First, there's a conversation you replay. You're certain of what was said, but he's equally certain of a different version. And he's so calm about it, so confused by your confusion. And eventually you think, maybe I misheard. Maybe I'm more stressed than I realized. Then there's a pattern. Your feelings are frequently too much, too sensitive, too emotional, too reactive. You start monitoring yourself, measuring your responses before you deliver them, wondering if this reaction is justified or if you're being unreasonable again. And then one day, you realize you've stopped trusting your own perceptions. This is called gaslighting. But what makes it so effective isn't that it's dramatic, it's that it's quiet, it's cumulative. It's delivered with such apparent sincerity that you start to wonder if the problem is your own perception rather than his behavior. Psychologists call it intermittent reinforcement, and it's the same mechanism used in casinos. Unpredictable rewards are more addictive than consistent ones. When warmth comes after coldness, it doesn't just feel good, it feels like winning. Her brain is now chemically wired to chase the warm version of him. The confident woman who never second-guessed herself in a boardroom is now constantly second-guessing herself in her own kitchen. The scary part? Most people completely misunderstand this moment. They think the confusion means she's become weak. Actually, her intelligence is working against her. She's trying to solve an unsolvable problem with the only tools she has: logic, analysis, effort. But you cannot logic your way out of an emotional labyrinth designed to make you doubt your compass. Let's kill another myth. The myth that leaving is easy, and women who stay simply aren't strong enough to go. Here's what actually happens. A woman who has succeeded in difficult environments has usually done so by refusing to quit, by outworking the problem, by communicating more clearly, trying harder, refusing to accept no as a final answer. Those qualities built her career. In this relationship, they keep her trapped. Because she looks at the dysfunction and thinks, I've solved harder problems than this. I just need to find the right approach, communicate more clearly, be more patient, understand him better. She is applying the mindset of a high achiever to a situation where that mindset is structurally exploitable.
And she is surrounded by the sunk cost of everything she's already invested. The years, the belief, the version of the future she thought she was building. Leaving doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like failure. And high-achieving women are not comfortable with failure. So she stays and tries harder. And the harder she tries, the more the dynamic benefits the person who is not trying at all. By this point, the erosion is internal. She's anxious in a way she can't fully explain. Not situational anxiety, background anxiety. The low hum of someone who has been on high alert for so long, they've forgotten what calm felt like. Her friendships have contracted, not through any dramatic falling out, just through the slow accumulation of cancellations, missed calls, conversations that were hard to have because explaining the relationship had become exhausting. She's lost something she can't quite name, a version of herself that was louder, more certain, less careful. She used to walk into rooms and own them. Now she rehearses what she's going to say before she says it, even in rooms with no one else. This is what narcissistic abuse actually looks like in high-functioning women. It doesn't look like visible devastation. It looks like someone who is still performing competence while quietly disappearing from the inside. And the cruelest part is that she often blames herself for this disappearance. Because the narrative she's been given over and over is that the relationship's difficulties are a product of her inadequacy, her sensitivity, her inability to just be easier. She has been convinced that she is the problem in a situation designed to produce exactly this conviction.
For most women, it doesn't happen all at once. It happens during an ordinary moment. She's on the phone with a friend she hasn't talked to in months, or she's reading something, or she's sitting in a therapist's office for the first time, and the therapist says something that stops her cold. They describe a pattern, and she goes very still. Because she's heard this before. Not as a description of her relationship, she's heard it as a description of someone else's relationship. Someone she felt sorry for. Someone she quietly thought, I would never stay in something like that. And now she's sitting here, and the ground shifts. Because the realization isn't just, this relationship is harmful. The realization is, I wasn't failing. There was never a solution. I was never the problem. I was trying to fix something that was not broken. It was designed. For many women, this is simultaneously the most painful and the most liberating moment of their lives. The years of self-blame collapse in on themselves. The exhausting search for what she did wrong dissolves. Because the answer is, she was too good at loving someone who didn't love her back in kind. That's not a flaw. That's a wound. And wounds can heal. So what does protection actually look like? Not suspicion, not walls, not becoming someone who loves less carefully. It looks like learning the difference between intensity and consistency. A narcissist will give you intensity in the beginning, overwhelming attention, grand declarations, the feeling of being completely chosen. Intensity is easy to generate. It requires no sustained effort. It is designed to hook, not to hold. Consistency is boring. Consistency is showing up when it isn't exciting, keeping promises when no one is watching, being the same person in conflict as they are in warmth. Watch for consistency. It is the only reliable signal. Second, take emotional accountability as a sign of health. Someone who can say, I hurt you, and I'm sorry, and here's what I'm going to do differently, without reversing it back onto you, without punishing you for being hurt. That is a rare and precious thing. Do not take it for granted. Third, trust the drift. When you notice yourself gradually becoming smaller, monitoring your words more, explaining yourself more, feeling like you're always on probationary status, trust that signal. That drift is not your anxiety. That is your self-knowledge trying to tell you something. And finally, notice who you become around someone. The right relationship does not make you doubt your memory. It does not make you feel like you are too much. It makes you feel more like yourself, not less. Here is what I want you to take from this. The woman on the bathroom floor at 11:47 on a Tuesday night is not there because she was too naive, too weak, too desperate, or too unguarded. She's there because she loved with everything she had, because she believed in someone's potential, because she applied every skill that had ever worked for her to a problem that was designed to be unsolvable. She was not fooled because she was foolish. She was targeted because she was valuable. And the qualities that made her vulnerable, the empathy, the loyalty, the resilience, the refusal to give up on someone she loved, those are not qualities to be ashamed of. They are qualities to be protected. Because here is the truth that no one tells you at the end of these stories. The women who survive narcissistic relationships don't come out broken. They come out with a clarity that most people spend their entire lives searching for. They know exactly who they are. They know precisely what they will and won't accept. They know the difference between intensity and love, between control and care, between someone who sees them and someone who has only learned to use them. The very qualities that made you vulnerable are the same qualities that will help you heal. You were not too much. You were simply in the wrong hands.